Hello, my name is Henry, and today I'm going to be talking about how to get a 9 in English literature and how to do this in 3 months as well. So, a couple of things first. One is, for a bit of context, I got all 9s in my GCSEs, including English literature. However, I did English literature in year 10, and this was the one grade for us that was actually predicted, but I got 9s in all of we did questions beforehand to kind of signal our predicted grade or make up our predicted grade, and I got 9s in them. This video is done also with the help of my older sister Sophie, who is currently in uni doing English literature and got an A star and 9 in English literature, so thank you for that. And for anyone that's new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe now and leave a like. I am just trying to release a lot of videos, all the help I can kind of put out there for people currently in year 11. That's why the quality may be lower, and next year I'm going to kind of try up the quality. I'll have a bit more time to work on that. But for now, I'm just trying to get everything out there that I can. So please make sure you subscribe. I'm also going to be doing A-level videos next year, kind of A-level first year videos, things like that. So it will be helpful for them too. So English literature is the most requested video on my channel. There's not too much content out there on it in terms of advice for how to revise it and things like that, or at least compared to maths and sciences. So it's definitely possible to go from whatever grade you are now to a 9 with enough effort, or to a very high grade. It's 100% possible to improve your grades in the last 3 months. And actually these are the times when you're likely to improve your grades the most, is the final push towards the exams. I'm going to be doing a video soon on how I would revise in the last 3 months of my exams. I did one in the last 4 months, and I'm going to kind of update it because we're getting closer now to the exam, so revision changes. But I just want to say it's definitely possible to revise English. It's just a kind of different type of revision to kind of like doing small maths questions or things like Seneca for science. And firstly, my first piece of advice I would give is to reread all of your texts at least once. Try and read them you don't have to do it from start to finish, but they should all be read at least once between now and the exams, without a doubt. Any more than once would be great, but obviously in 3 months that might be difficult to do that. That includes your poems too. Make sure you read them all. Probably with your poems, I would read them all multiple times, really try and get them in your head. And when you're going through your kind of text, things like that, this was a piece of advice from Sophie. It would be really useful to kind of summarize at the end of each chapter. So write down kind of what happened in that chapter, just summarize it. You could do it on a post-it note, piece of paper, text, flashcard, anything like that. Because in English, especially for the higher levels, it's really important to have a good overview of the whole text. So you should know what's going on at what time roughly, the changes in the play, things like that. So when you're reading it, don't just read it. Try and read it with a critical approach. Think about the themes, think about the quotes. You can highlight stuff like that. But definitely, first piece of advice is read everything once more. Secondly is mind maps. So I never usually loved mind maps myself. Things like notes I didn't like. I much preferred flashcards, but English is probably the subject where I would say mind maps are the most useful. I did these too, and they did really help. So you could come up with mind maps, or for example Macbeth, you could have Macbeth in the middle. Then in these mind maps on a sheet of A4 paper, you can just talk about all the themes, kind of mind map themes, quotes, anything like that. And this is where blurting can come in. I think you probably would have heard of blurting, but if you haven't, blurting is basically where you try and write down as much as you can, all from your memory, and then compare it to a sheet and see which ones you missed out, so you can add in the information. Personally, I never clicked amazingly with blurting, but I did use it for certain things, and English is one where I would use it. So I'd recommend that too. Mind maps are useful for English. Create mind maps of key themes, characters, and most importantly, this is kind of one of the key pieces of advice I can give for any exams. Focus on what you're worst at. We've got 3 months left. This would be my biggest piece of advice. Which text are you worst at? What themes are you worst at? What characters are you worst at? What questions would you hate if they came up? These are the things that you should be prioritizing, because these are the things that can lower your grade and catch you out. So I would prioritize, obviously try and do all of it, but I would prioritize the things you're worst at in English. Thirdly, this is similar to English language advice, practice essays. So I would recommend a practice essay, kind of a 45-minute, 30-mark essay, once every week at this point, or once every other week would be fine too. hand these into your teacher if your teacher's kind of willing to do that. If not, then there'll be people online, tutors, who are willing to do that. Or you can compare it with the mark scheme and kind of mark it yourself or look at example answers. But hand it into your teacher, get it marked, get it back, get the feedback, and apply the feedback to your next essay. This should be going on in the background. Essay plans, 40 minutes of essays. This is what Sophie said as well, is that 40 minutes of writing an essay is so much better than 40 minutes of just writing notes, copying notes, or kind of highlighting stuff. And I completely agree. In English language, I really, what helped me the most was just writing essays. It's the same with almost any subject. There's no better way to learn than to write practice essays, but obviously you need to know the kind of content and stuff first as well. So yeah, I would be doing practice essays once every other week. Probably once a week would be best if you're aiming for really, really high grades, and get them marked and get your feedback. So next would be to learn key terminology. So this also applies to English language, but you need to be able to recognise things like similes, their effect. And that's the other important thing as well, is there's no use saying the writer uses a simile here. You need to say, why does the writer use a simile? Things like that, why are these useful? What's the point of repetition? Otherwise it's useless if you just say he or the writer, he or she used a simile here. So not only would I learn kind of all of the stuff like adjectives, nouns, all of that inside out, so you can always recognise one, always write one as well for English language, but try and find more deeper techniques. So I remember flashcarding something called tag questions, which is where there's a question at the end of a sentence, a mini question. There are loads online you can find, sort of things like colloquial language, semantic fields. I'm going to link in the description a kind of key terminology things, and try and pick up some of these, learn them, so you can analyse them better in the exams, because that is really important too. Next would be context. For the high grades especially, it's really important to know the context of the play. So think about context of Macbeth, think about context of Jekyll and Hyde, the type of play as well. So Macbeth is a tragedy, Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. Think about things like that as well. That's really important, is to know the context, read up on the context. My final piece of advice would be research. So I would apply this to history too, things like that, geography, and actually all your subjects. Try and show an interest in it. I understand you may not love English at all, you may hate it, but try and research it, try and show an interest in it. So anything you read about Macbeth or any of your plays will be helpful to you. There's lots of resources online. You should try and be watching these a lot too. I think it's Mr. Sells English for AQA, he's really good. There are lots of channels. I'll try and link some in the description, but for English and history and the humanities, watching YouTube videos I found really helpful. Any form of documentary, any video, anything like that will help. If you don't like reading the text, watching Macbeth or watching and reading them would be helpful, or watching Shakespeare plays, any plays. So that'd be the last piece of advice, just research, show an interest in it. And there should be Seneca as well. I think there's Seneca for English literature. I didn't use it, but anything would help. So if you're stuck and don't know what to do, I'd follow this plan. And just remember, any revision in English is good revision. It's a lie that you can't revise English literature or English language. You really can, and you really can move up in grades very fast in this. As always, I will be answering any comments in the comment section, so please leave a comment and please leave a like too. Feel free to share this video to your friends, and that is kind of an overview of how I would revise English literature to get a 9 in the last 3 months. Thank you.